Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
Welcome back to Options Insider Radio. Our next guest is another first-timer on the show. We have a lot of newcomers this year, that's what's fun about OIC. We get so many great people all together in one place. We can bring them on and kind of get a variety of different perspectives of the options business. And our next guest is Chris Nagy. He's the managing director of options over at TD Ameritrade. And Chris, it's nice to finally get you on the show.
Oh, thanks a lot, Mark. Really appreciate it.
You know, you've been around the industry for quite a while. You're pretty well known to people here at OIC, but I'm sure a lot of people at home are not as familiar with you or the stuff you do over at TD. So let's start off. Introduce yourself to our listeners. Give us a little bit of your background and how you got over to TD and what you do over there at TD Ameritrade.
Sure. It's actually kind of a funny story if we go in the Wayback Machine. I've been in the business for about 25 years working with a number of big Wall Street firms. My last assignment previous to TD, I was up in Minneapolis, and I got a call from this company called Ameritrade. And they asked me if I wanted to go to Omaha to work for a company called Ameritrade. And I said, Ameri who? And mind you, this is back in 1999, .com boom going on. And they said, Ameritrade.com. I said, by golly, Ameritrade.com. Do you guys have stock options? They said, we sure do. I told my wife,
we'll pay you in all options.
That's exactly
$1
right.
a year in options.
Told my wife, we'll move to this place called Omaha for 2 years where I will retire a multimillionaire. Of course, that didn't happen. I ended up there today where I've been for the past 11 years. And what I do there is I work on our routing strategy and with all the different markets that we participate in, be it equities, options, bulletin board markets, and whatnot. Fostering the relationships, helping forge the structure by which the retail client engages in the marketplace. Awful lot of time doing that. And in addition, I've done so well at it, I guess, the firm made me a registered lobbyist. So I'm down in D.C. quite a bit, visiting my friends at the SEC and my senators, congressmen on various issues that affect options trading.
Well, that obviously is a whole other rabbit hole we can go down to the derivatives regulation these days. Hopefully, maybe if we have some time, we can dive into some of that stuff because, like I said, that is endlessly fascinating and frustrating at the same time.
Yes, it is.
One of the first things I want to start off with is obviously you're here from TD Ameritrade, but you guys acquired Thinkorswim last year,
That's right.
and which was an interesting acquisition. Obviously, they're a very targeted options entity. So now you kind of have almost two platforms that are, obviously you kept the Thinkorswim brand, identity, website is separate, the TD Ameritrade is still a separate website. So how are you positioning the two different areas or firms or brands now? Is Thinkorswim for the hardcore options guy and TD Ameritrade is more for maybe the general brokerage customer who wants to do a little bit of options, or how are those two kind of working together? Or are you maybe competing a little bit for the options demographic?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Mark, and let me kind of dive into that. TD, of course, TD Ameritrade is a firm that's really grown through two forms. One, organically, we've had very successful organic growth rate over the past decade. But more importantly, we've also engaged in a very strong M&A campaign where we've done a lot of very successful mergers and acquisitions in the marketplace, going all the way back to when I started with the company back in 99. As we moved forward and expanded our market share after the TD Waterhouse acquisition, which got us into bricks and mortar and some of the advisor space, we really realized and saw that our more advanced clients were engaging in options trading and had a lot of interest in getting into options trading. We set about building our own educational platform, and we set about starting to build a lot of our trading platforms. But however, along came a wonderful opportunity in Thinkorswim. Thinkorswim effectively allowed us to get best-in-class services. Of course, Thinkorswim is renowned for their Barron's survey, which they get the #1 broker awards for options
they've been
platforms.
cleaning up on that for quite a while.
Very, very good. Very robust technology, very advanced for the options user. But even more importantly, Thinkorswim has one of the best-in-class educational systems out there. So that's what really drew us to the merger is we've got a huge client base at Ameritrade, 7 million clients strong. How do we expand the educational efforts of options and the value that options provide to investor portfolios, especially in times that we saw in 2008 to the average class user? Thinkorswim was the perfect opportunity for us to do that. So once we announced the merger last year, we began to go about with the merger process, and the first step was integrating the educational platform, which we've done very successfully. We now have education across the country for the legacy TD Ameritrade clients and the Thinkorswim. So
you can log into Thinkorswim education from the TD Ameritrade site too?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And the second thing we wanted to do was very quickly bring about some of that wonderful, robust Thinkorswim technology to our users. So we built Think TDA or Thinkorswim by TD Ameritrade, effectively, that allowed TD Ameritrade users to log into the Thinkorswim platform. However, those trades were still cleared and processed through TD Ameritrade, but the user experience, the feel of that front end was there. Within the TD Ameritrade front end, we never had the technology, the robust technology that Thinkorswim had. So today, as we move through the integration, we're still clearing separately. We're going to first bring about clearing by the end of this year, where both platforms will clear through one custodian. And then we're going to take all the best features of the Thinkorswim platform and couple those onto the TD Ameritrade platform, while still having two different usabilities depending on what your trading style is, so to speak. So really, instead of a one-size-fits-all platform, which TD Ameritrade historically had been, we're moving in more into what class of investor are you, and what product and feature set will you have. So, we look forward to the coming years of really rolling those platforms out, and we think, we'll have the best-in-class platform for the average retail investor in the marketplace for options.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're going to start rolling in a little more integration there. So that's good, because that'll answer a lot of the emails I get on a regular basis. I should start forwarding them to you. You could save me some time. What's going on with TD? What's going on with Thinkorswim and the two of them? But it's interesting. Then you can kind of segment that way, because I'm sure you have a lot of established equity traders in the TD Ameritrade house. You can use the Thinkorswim education and platform to kind of leverage them up, get them introduced to options, and get them trading more actively into options and make them Thinkorswim customers.
Yeah, that's very true. In fact, it's not just our equity traders, which TD Ameritrade has quite a few. We process more trades online, more retail trades online than any other broker in the world, by a long shot, I might add. And it's also about rolling that functionality out to what we call the advisor class of the business. This downturn really signaled with the advisors, which historically have invested in a lot of packaged products, that in down markets they really need to protect or insure their portfolios. And it became clear to the advisor segment that this is something that could really help them to help their consumers and their clients down the road. So we see the opportunities for both segments within the legacy TD Ameritrade platforms.
I think it's really interesting you mentioned the advisors, because that's something that the options business has struggled with for decades to try to break into that. Years ago, I wrote, when I was still doing the column for Traders Magazine, I wrote a column calling them essentially like the holy grail of the options market.
Yeah, I actually remember that article.
Because it was, at the time I was kind of pestering OIC, you guys really need to go after these guys, offer some sort of certification. Obviously, they are doing a lot of that now, not because of me, but because they saw the value of it as well. On paper, it makes a lot of sense. These guys are usually long-only asset managers. They have mostly equity clients. They should be writing calls and buying protected puts. It should be a no-brainer. But for whatever reason, they don't get the education. They're terrified of it. Their clients are terrified of it. They don't want to bring up the D-word derivatives to them. Right. So there's just no penetration in that marketplace. I know OIC is putting a huge initiative forward to that. So what is TD doing as well to kind of reach out? You're working with OIC? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. I sit on the OIC roundtable and have been fairly instrumental in bringing about a lot of the advisor pieces of the business. In fact, out at the options conference here, we met yesterday, spent a number of hours talking about the advisor piece of the business. But we're doing just that. One of the first things we did after the integration of Thinkorswim, or after the acquisition of Thinkorswim, is we actually put out a booth at one of the big trade shows we run. Us and a couple of other big discount brokers run large trade shows on an annual basis. And during that trade show, we put up a booth for Thinkorswim, and it was amazing how we had literally advisors, 5 to 6 people deep, just fascinated to learn all about options, how they could protect their clients. That right there signaled there was a huge need in this market for that. The beauty of it is with that Thinkorswim educational program, we're able to custom tailor a lot of the educational pieces directly to the advisor. And we're able to leverage that technology and push that out a little bit different format for the advisor to give them ideas and thoughts on how they can invest for their users. So we see that process moving along very, very well, and we see it as a huge growth opportunity for us.
That's encouraging that you're getting a good response from that. Because I know when the OIC first announced they were doing that, I was like, I hope this works. But traditionally, it never has. And everyone who's going after this market has failed for one reason or another because the penetration wasn't there. So it's nice to hear that the OIC initiative is getting some feedback.
Actually, it's working so well that when we first started within the OIC, sitting on the roundtable, when we first started, we were seeking one FA consultant, essentially, that will go out and educate people on options with the OIC. At the conference today, we're moving forward with getting a second person in there. So that, I think, speaks volume to the success of the OIC program.
I know Eric Kott's been running that for them over there and being kind of the front man for that. Yeah, he's got his hands full. That's quite the challenge to be the one-man point man for advisors on options. That's
soon to be another.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Well, yeah, we've been working with them for a while. Since they launched their website, we've had content up there for them. We've been trying to help them with that because, like I said, that is something that we've tried to support for a long time. It just hasn't worked, so I'm glad to see people are finally making a concerted effort. I keep bugging them, too. Hopefully, eventually, I know they went down this road a little bit a few years ago, and they kind of backed off at the last minute. Obviously, advisors love to have a little shingle to hang on their door, and I don't mean to make you the advisor spokesman right now, but we somehow have gotten into this. But, they love to have something they can market, saying, hey, I'm certified in this, I'm certified in that. And I think I would love to see eventually, whether it's OIC, OCC, or someone of the exchanges, offer some sort of certification. They can go take a class for a few weeks or a few months, whatever it might be, and then say, hey, I'm certified in options. So they feel a little more comfortable with the product. Right. They have something they can use to market. And I know they went down that road a little bit, then they kind of backed off because of liability concerns. They didn't want to be the guy certifying the one advisor who goes out and blows out, 50,000 clients or whatever it might be. So there's liability concerns there. But it's a great idea that someone can get around the liability issue, because that would, I think, really be the perfect point of entree for a lot of those guys who are still hesitant.
Yes, and that's true. Actually, OIC is working on that initiative right now. They're doing a website redesign to tailor the front end to the advisor a lot more. So they'll have a couple different user experiences from the front end, depending on who you are coming to the front end. Okay. In a lot of ways, it's no different than what we're doing at TD Ameritrade, right? We've got a platform that we kind of push out to the advisor. We've got a platform that we push out to the active options trader, and we've got a platform that we push out to the long-term investor. So it's segmenting that user class to what suits you as an investor and what are things that you look for, what are your hot buttons that will really get you interested in a particular product set or a product class.
Let's move away from the advisor tip for a minute and get back to your bailiwick, which is kind of order routing and execution, that sort of thing. I know I see you a lot at various shows on execution panels and that kind of thing. And a lot of things we see is that, execution quality is traditionally a high-class problem. It's institutional guys, they can't get their 1,000 lots done. And the retail guys are usually pretty happy doing their 10 lots and they get decent execution. But what we've seen a lot, just from talking to the users on our site and going to a lot of different retail-heavy shows and doing presentations there and speaking with the audiences there, is that, the 10 up, 20 up, kind of the more higher-end retail guys, I'm starting to hear the same complaints from them that I hear from the institutional guys. I can't get my 20 lots done. I'm getting hung on 10 of them. I get partial fills. I'm getting bad execution. So I'm curious, A, what you think about that. Basically, is best execution a retail problem as well? And then B, a question we receive a lot from our users is looking at different options brokerages. Obviously, there's commissions you can compare with them, but the higher-end guys also want to be able to compare execution quality. And it's very difficult to do that. So how would you recommend your average high-end retail guy wants to compare options brokers? How would you compare, best X stats? And is that something TD offers where you can look at, and Thinkorswim, you look at our execution stats, and we publish that so we can kind of compare those with other brokers?
So that is a very good set of questions, and it's very timely.
Take them one at a time or however you like.
It's very timely because we just finished, in fact, I authored along with my other co-head of government relations, we just co-authored the paper for the concept release, which ended on April 21. And in there, we talk about a lot of the benefits that Rule 605 and 606 have brought to options, and we're looking at, or have brought to equities rather, not options. And we're looking at seeing how we can expand that to options. In there, we talk a lot about how, although the retail investor may and the institutional investor may not look directly at the 605 or 606 statistics, the transparency that's been provided by these metrics have actually benefited the equity industry as a whole.
Tremendously. Yeah.
And in addition to that, we've actually at TD Ameritrade, we've gone a step further. We've taken those statistics in the equity world, and we push those and publish those out to the retail user and the advisor to show them this is the kind of quality that you're receiving on trade execution today. Unfortunately, we don't have that same availability in the options world. So, and we've got, today 8 different options exchanges. There's always the hopes of even having more in there. So how do we bring about more transparency for the user? And we actually feel that by bringing about the benefits of Rule 605 into the options world, it'll start bringing more transparency towards execution quality. And that over time will help, we believe, fix some of the liquidity issues that we might see in the markets, fix some of the pricing issues that we see in the markets today. So those complaints are, deadened a lot because quality has improved. Transparency, I believe, and the firm believes, is one of the best weapons, if you will, that the SEC can wield in their ability to forge better markets for all users. We think that's a very good start for the options world. We'd love nothing more than to be able to go out and push and tout our execution quality with options, just as we do in the equity world. But the problem is we can't because there's no standardized metrics, right? So we can't benchmark ourselves against the industry, say, at all. That information is just not available today. There are certain facets of it that are, but as a whole, it's just not available. So we're hopeful that the SEC kind of hears our pleas on that particular issue and moves forward. And today, actually, Jamie Brigliano made mention of that and talked a little bit about how, perhaps the SEC does need to look at pushing 605 statistics into the options world.
Well, it's good to hear that they're starting to wake up to the needs of the options space. SEC is I think glacial is being nice to them for their pace of their regulatory reform in the options space. Yeah. But you mentioned you are the lobbyist for TD as well, and so we have a few minutes we can kind of dive into that a little bit. I'm curious, just how frustrating must it be to be the guy down on the hill who is the derivatives representative down there? You're obviously representing options, and they're lumping you in with the same OTC credit default swaps and
that's right.
all these completely unrelated things. So I'm curious, A, it's got to be very frustrating, and B, are you seeing any sort of penetration down there that any of these guys are starting to get it, that this stuff, listed, cleared stuff, worked very well and was not the source of the problem, and that you need to focus your efforts on this other garbage over here and leave, some of the stuff that worked alone? Or are they just kind of, derivatives are evil and we're painting it all with that brush and we're all going to suffer regardless?
Well, I'll put some of those fears to ease and tell you that, yes, I think they do understand that there is a difference between over-the-counter derivatives, those which are not traded on an exchange, and listed derivatives, those which are, which, in fact, this is pretty much what this conference is about. There seems to be a lot more awareness to that. In fact, I will tell you that on the Hill, there seems to be a lot of awareness that, wow, the transparency of exchange-cleared products really worked flawlessly through this recent downturn that we had. And it's more important than ever to get more products like that are cleared. We spend a lot of time, well, I do in particular, both with the OIC and just in my own, visiting with the SEC, visiting with various congressmen and senators about options. I will tell you that they're always happy to have visitors in that explain the different nuances with products. So I'd encourage anyone to really go down there and make their voice heard. That's the beauty of our capital market system and the way our government works today is you can and do have a voice, and I encourage everyone to use it. I believe that as we move forward, the options markets will be spared, so to speak, so that effectively, a lot of the transparency the markets have will hold true. One of the big issues, of course, that was facing the options markets that was looming was a bill that Senator DeFazio or Congressman DeFazio put forward in the House, and subsequently later Senator Harkin, which was a transaction tax bill.
Yes.
That bill could have had a devastating impact on the options markets and the equity markets as it sought to impose a 25 basis point tax. Imagine, if you will, just for a moment, that our average retail client at TD Ameritrade places on average, $18,000 order in notional value. They'd pay their customary $9.99 trade commission, and then we'd slap them with a $45 fee as a transaction tax. Now, that bill was called the Let Wall Street Pay for the Bailout Act. However, the reality is, just within TD Ameritrade, the retail investor would have paid $3.3 billion in taxes based on our last year's volume. So it's not really Wall Street paying. It's
mom-and-pop retail, too.
Mom-and-pop paying. And then what that would have done was furthen the reach of options to the retail consumer. So we fought very hard on that bill, and we're glad to see in the current reg reform bill that
has been removed.
Yeah, it's been removed.
It's almost difficult to keep up with the changes, the pace of this stuff. Every day you read a new headline, there's a new proposal, and then something's been added, something's been taken away. I'm glad to hear that is, at least from your perspective, it seems like it's off the table right now, which is nice.
It does. Of course, it's still a live bill, and you never know what can resurface again. And like you said, Mark, it's very important that you stay vigilant on a lot of the various issues because they can crop up. The good thing is if you're in contact on a regular basis with your various congressmen and senators, when they do, at least you can get a phone call saying, hey, have you taken a look at this bill? We've got an issue in here. Does that impact you? And it gives you a chance to be able to go in and say, well, I need to get this removed, possibly, or changed.
You're encouraging me then that at least some people are willing to listen. I know in the past, being the representative for derivatives down there is kind of like being the representative for like child pornography. No one wants to hear what you have to say. No one welcomes you in their door. They're like, oh no, get out of my office. So it's encouraging to hear that some people at least are willing to play ball, which is nice. We've had quite the far-reaching conversation here today. I plan to talk mostly about TD, but we had a lot of other interesting things to talk about as well. I'm glad we can finally get you on the show. I know before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance. Are you guys announcing anything down here at OIC? Any new developments you want to talk about?
Nothing other than the continued work on the integration that we're moving forward on. So, we just announced our earnings. We had a pretty good earnings.
I saw that. You guys had a pretty good run. Thanks in no small part to the Thinkorswim guys. They're contributing quite a bit. See, I think you mentioned before some time frame for that. You thinking 6 months to a year for all that to be done? Or?
What we're looking for is to complete the clearing conversion towards the end of the year, followed subsequently by some of the technology enhancements. But, like I said, last year, we actually rolled out a platform for the TD Ameritrade users where they can literally log in and trade with that Thinkorswim experience. Still didn't have all the features and facets, for example, Forex trading and futures trading and things like that, but the options pieces were available to the users. So that was great. We made that available very, very quickly. And again, the educational piece, we were able to roll that out in a very expedient fashion. And we see huge value in that for the user and for the firm.
Well, Chris, I'm glad to finally have you on the show after all these different times you bumped into each other, all these different conferences and all these far-flung locales over the years. We finally get to have you on the show. I'm glad we could get the TD perspective on the show. We'll have to bring you back maybe towards the end of the year to look back and see how that integration is progressing.
That sounds great, Mark. I'd enjoy that.
And that's going to do it for this episode of Options Insider Radio. Be sure to visit www.theoptionsinsider.com for more episodes of this program, as well as breaking news from the options market, the latest articles and analysis from options experts, a wide variety of options education, and of course our discussion center where you can share your questions, comments, and insights with your fellow Options Insider users. While you're there, be sure to register for our monthly email newsletter, as well as our free email alert system. Our email alert system makes it even easier to stay up to date on the latest content from theoptionsinsider.com. Thanks again for listening. My name is Mark Longo, and I'll see you next time on Options Insider Radio.
Options Insider Radio was created by Mark Longo and produced by Gene Crotty. Options Insider Radio is a production of the Options Insider Incorporated, all rights reserved.